Great defeaters, new and old. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another scintillating episode of The Breakdown with your host, BaseDaKID, Tony, the pugilist boy. We are the children of the game. Tony, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, my friend. Yeah, I'm finally recovered from a fabulous birthday weekend. Yeah, you know, Gemini season is in. I know how you like to talk about your Capricorn season, but let's be honest, folks. Gemini season is the real one.
I mean, I beg to disagree, but you know what? The majority of my family are Geminis, so past and present.
I know how you like to claim how the one-hitter quitters are all Capricorns, but I can name you a few Geminis. But anyway, that aside, yeah, it's been a wonderful weekend. I was blessed to be at an all-white party with my good friend.
Man like Dean.
Man like Dean, big boy. So yeah, we had a great night, a great day and night. And yeah, what a weekend of boxing. I mean, you know, I was actually quite mash up on my birthday, which was the Saturday, but I still managed to see a fair bit of the boxing, which was both UK and where else?
It was UK, US. Those are the main two. Yeah, it's just UK and US.
Where was the Kiyoguchi? That was
Mexico.
Mexico, yeah. I knew there was another place in the world that there was boxing. So yeah, I was kept up, well entertained with some good bouts. Somewhat surprisingly, I guess, in some ways, because there wasn't a really big bout this weekend where you could go, this was a blockbuster bout, but there was some good action to be seen. So let's get into it, shall we?
Yeah, say what's up to the people,
shall we? Okay, big up to man like Mulla. Big up nice and early as always, my guy from downside, my sister's friend. Uncle Jonah in the house, Mr. A in the house, Big Tony, Dan the man, North Bank Bren, big up the Gooners in the house. Danny, Fight Fan TV.
Big
October up. Red.
Oh, the fifth member of the team. What's up, October?
And Phil Larkin. Yes, big up to everyone who's joined us nice and early. So yeah, this weekend was an absolutely amazing weekend of boxing. And where do we start with?
So are we starting on Friday or are we starting on Saturday?
Oh my God! Look, he put me in amongst the. What happened on Friday?
That's Kiyoguchi and Bermudez.
Okay, that's where we'll start. That's where we'll start. So for those of you who didn't notice, there was fight action on Friday this weekend gone. Couple of interesting fights. Unification, really. Kiyoguchi against Bermudez, the two WBA champions, which I want to talk about.
Well, it's a consolidation in that case, isn't it? If they're both of the same.
Yeah. So we have a little bit of action because that was actually an interesting fight. Here's a bit of the action.
Yeah, we can't even show the video footage from the zone at the moment. They're being a bit bad mind with us, but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a good fight, and the eventual winner, Kiyoguchi, stamped his claim as being, you know, a really good fighter in his weight division. Put on a solid performance, got rid of his guy very well. You know, I really enjoyed that fight on Friday. Also on that bill. Well, let's talk about that one first. What was your thoughts on that fight?
Yeah, I mean, that fight, it was a really, really good fight. One thing that I kind of noticed, obviously, Kiyoguchi's been out of the ring for like a year or so, and the first couple of rounds to me kind of told that, because there was times when he was not getting his range sort of correct. Obviously, he's a pressure fighter, similar to how Chocolatito is, but there was times when I saw him literally like walking his way into jabs, like not slipping them. He's literally just walking forward, like in his guard, and the jabs is literally rocking his head. So I was like, is this this can't be right. This isn't the Kyoguchi that I'm used to seeing. But there was after sort of the second round that pretty much stopped, and he started working his angles, like the footwork was there. Then he started staying on the inside. The uppercut, his uppercut was lethal, probably one of the best uppercuts at those lower weights. He was totally just devastating and rocking Esteban Bermudez head back with the uppercuts, with the overhand right. He was sometimes slipping to the side of Bermudez's jab to land his overhand right. He was also staying working the body as well. It was just one of those, after sort of the second round, it was just a really composed performance. I really enjoyed it. It was brutal. He was a little dirty in there. Like the 2 point deductions, while you could say they were harsh, they were also warranted, especially the first one, because he went in with his head. And it wasn't even forward. He went past the guy, and it's like he was doing like a soccer hooligan. He literally hit him twice, and then the ref called and took off the point. And obviously he had warned him before, although he didn't warn Esteban Bermudez as well, which he should have. So clearly ref was playing a bit of favoritism there. But yeah, that was cool. Obviously the hit to the back of the head, a little harsh, but ultimately he did it, so got the point off for that. But it was elementary at that point. He was like, well, this ain't getting the distance, I'm not going to let it. Bermudez's face was a crimson moss. There was he had a cut at the top of the head, the nose was broken, and there was a cut on the nose, there was a cut on the side of the eye. Like, yeah, Kyoguchi just went to town, and the mad boy showed exactly why he's mad.
So it was a definitive performance from Kyoguchi. Also on that card, saw a guy who's been fighting over here of late.
Jorge
Castaneda. And to my surprise, he got properly tonked.
Mexican power's different. It's not the same. Like, the same way Castaneda dealt with Yusef Kamari, dealt with that power. When it came to Hernandez, he had no answer. One round out straight. Because remember, he also beat was it Ray Ford? He beat Ray Ford as well. Gave him his first loss. So he was almost like this new boogeyman. He had his new lease of life, got his DAZN deal, everything. Gets taken out in one round. It's like, well, boy, where does he go from here? But it was a devastating beating. It really was.
So that was a bit of a shocker to see him after his impressive performances here in the UK. But he did what he had to do, and enjoyable for that one round that it lasted. So
and before we move on to the next one, I just want to give a quick shout out to Myling Rivas. Her performance was pretty masterful as well. She stopped her opponent in, I think it was the third round or the end of the third, getting into it. Was it the fourth round it stopped, or was it the start of the fourth?
It's down as a fourth round TKO.
Okay, right, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, she hasn't been in the ring for sort of the last 2 years, but when you just if you look at her movement, the way she was picking her punches in the selection, like she was boxing more like a man over 3-minute rounds than how we normally see the women box over the 2 minutes, where it's more action and about outlanding your opponent and trying to sort of get them out of there quickly. Like, she was literally tucking up nice and neat, allowing her opponent to sort of try and get off certain shots so that she could pick the counters and the openings. And we saw what she done to Fernandez's nose, and yeah, that was obviously she is able to get the stoppage from that. She also came with a great uppercut on the night, so it definitely was the night of the uppercut. Pure violence in Mexico.
Yeah,
and she's she's actually basically she will be one of Ellie Scotney's next opponents, because Ellie's got the WBA international belt, and she's obviously the the WBA champion of 122. So that is the natural fight to make, and probably one of the reasons she ended up being signed two matchroom, obviously with Ellie and Ramna Ali. But yeah, as I said in my video the other day, I don't want Ellie anywhere near her for a while, especially with the lack of power she's currently got, because Rivas will hurt her, and it won't be nice.
So James Douglas has said he loves the way Rivas fights, likes to see her move.
Like to see more of her.
Yeah. October says she broke her face into pieces and she looks fresh, says James Douglas. He also says that's a tough fight for Ellie if she takes that fight on.
She's not ready for that fight yet.
Yeah. There's a correction for us from Muller and any fight fan. Yes, it wasn't Ray Ford. It was Ofer Jones.
Was it Ofer? I was thinking, was it Ofer or was it Ray Ford? But yeah, Ofer Jones.
Well done, guys, on that spot.
Thank you for that.
No problem. Great. So yeah, that concludes our review of that fight action from Mexico. Where do we go next?
Well, we got to move to October's favorite, ain't we?
The React Poll show.
Don't worry, we're going to spend a lot of time on React Poll for you, October, just for you.
So we have a little bit of footage. What can I show you of React Poll? Here we go. So yeah, that was devastating to say the least. I mean, you know, many of us have been critical, let's say, of Richard Riakporhe, his style, his lack of what we consider to be reasonable footwork. Somewhat looks a little bit mechanical in the way that he fights. But you know what? Yeah, all right, we're haters. We're not haters, but we can see that he's a little bit flawed in some aspects of the game. Yeah, he's not as fluent as some of the other guys in the division, or, you know, who you consider to be exponents of the great art. There is a somewhat similar look of a Frank Bruno in there. And it's funny because I watched a fight with a bunch of my cousins, and you know, a lot of the guys were saying, "Oh, doesn't he look like Frank Bruno?" I'm like, "Yeah, he does have a little certain something to Frank." But as October says, and look, she's chiming in. Look, she's going crazy. He is getting better, and I have to give credit where credit is due. The way he took out my man, it was a beautiful body shot. Interestingly, I noticed in the corner a certain Robert Garcia. And when I went, is that Robert Garcia? And it was like, no. But yeah, AJ's new trainer was also in the corner. And, you know, for what little time he must have had with Richard, you know, he obviously made some kind of impact. He looked phenomenal. He looked phenomenal. I mean, the guy's a specimen anyway. He's got great, you know, he's got a great body. He looks, you know, archetypally as an athlete, you know, good for the sport. But I think for me personally, there are much different tests to come. And obviously yesterday on Monday Night Smoke, there was lots of talk about how, you know, he's talking up fighting on Coley. For me, great improvements are being shown bit by bit, but he's still, you know, levels below Anna Coley and some of the other guys. It'd be interesting to see if he could match up with Makabu, because I don't really see Makabu as being that great of a fighter. So that might be an interesting test for him to look at. What were your thoughts, Base?
Well, I don't necessarily know if I saw the Garcia influence, because he did spend quite a lot of the first rounds literally just sort of circling around his man, sort of, you know, being kind of pushed to the ropes, you know, staying away, getting a look, whereas Garcia typically is more of an aggressive type trainer. sort of gets people high guard trying to pick openings apart. But with regards to Riakpo, I mean, obviously it was 2 rounds, so it's not really that much to sort of critique. But I do like the way that he was, even though you're not allowed to frame technically, he was kind of leaving his arm out there, just trying to understand the distance between himself and Turchi, just so he could work out, okay, how can I throw these harder shots later on. Even some of the hard shots he was throwing, they was only hitting gloves, but I think he was literally just throwing them for distance, just trying to understand the measure and make sure he got the right angles. And what he done a couple of times is he threw the right hand to the point that he was making sure that Turchi had his hands up, because he didn't keep his arms sort of mid-range. He kept them really high up on towards the top of his head. So he kept throwing the right up to the top just to make sure that his arms stayed up there. And then that's where he obviously spotted the opening for the sweeping left body hook. And I feel like he should probably be called the body snatcher at this point. That should be his new name instead of the midnight train, because he just seems to be taking everyone out with these crazy body shots that don't look like they're supposed to do much, but they're folding people over. It was, I mean, look, for the second round, I guess it was, the punch selection is great. He's definitely got that in abundance, and his power is always going to be something that can get him out of trouble. But like October said in the chat, he still is improving. Like, he's still learning his craft. He didn't have a long amateur background. He's still only got, what was that, his 15th professional fight now. So there's not a huge amount of experience to draw from. And obviously the 2 years he was out inactive, a lot of it, there was the hand injury and what other things. So it's not like he was literally just in the gym applying himself for that entire time. His age doesn't necessarily work against him, but it's not like he's got a huge amount of time now to sort of try and step it up and to keep learning. So while I wouldn't suggest having a title fight in his next fight, definitely feel if he can try and get another 2 fights in this year, maybe the EBU, and then another, maybe sort of one more slight step up from there, and then go for a world title sort of next year when sort of all the champions are a little bit older. But if you're going to have one now, then I'd definitely try and go for Arsene Goulamarian, because he hasn't fought since 2019. He would be the weakest of them, and as it's a WBA belt, you know how they are with their mandatories. They're a bit loose with it. You can still try and go on your learning trajectory in that way. So that's kind of how I would see it going, in my opinion. But no, for the rounds that pretty much where he did anything, it was fairly impressive. But he does need to sort of loosen up a little bit. That was what I would say.
I mean, I think we mentioned it when Chris Billam-Smith boxed recently, where we've seen a lot of improvement in Chris Billam-Smith, to the point now that I think a rematch between the two of them, which Riakpo won back in 2019, would be an interesting fight. I think there's a lot of I think that would sell out, I know too. You headline Riakpo against CBS. They both got a crowd. They both know, you can get a load of people in, and you support it well.
It's a boxer card, so that would be at the OVO. They only do Wembley, it seems, these days.
Okay.
But actually, having said that, because Billam-Smith's obviously with Matchroom, so that would have to be a cross-promotional event. And will that really happen?
Yeah. October Red says, how do we think about Myris Burgess?
He's not ready for Breeders yet. Not ready for Breeders yet.
Yeah, I think the same. I don't think he's quite ready for that step up. I understand what you're saying about going backwards, but I do think Billam-Smith has improved immensely, and it's a long time ago. They were both real sort of novices at the time. I mean, obviously Billam-Smith with the amateur pedigree, but I think, bearing in mind what's happened since then, and the crescendo for Billam-Smith on his side of the fence, I think it would be a reasonable fight in terms
And he's
of.
got all the titles as well. He's got the British and the European and the Commonwealth. So it would make sense to go after him and just clean up all those domestic titles and that European level, which is what we need to see him at before that world title anyway. So it makes sense.
Yeah, October isn't having it. We can't please you today, but
I haven't contradicted anything, so that must be towards you. I don't know what was said yesterday. I haven't seen Monday Night Smoke yet. I'm gonna have to watch it later on.
Okay. So yeah, that was the headline from the Wembley card. There was some decent undercard action on there as well. Let me see if I can pull it up. I'm gonna go with the headline. The fight that I thought would be the chief supporting fight was Chris Congo against Sebastian Formella.
No, Zach Chelly and Jermaine Brown was the chief support.
Yeah, but that actually wasn't the fight that I thought it would be. I thought that the Congo fight would have been a bigger fight to put as the chief support. But hey, I was kind of surprised because when I turned on the boxing, that fight was on. I'm like, hang on, why is this fight on so early? And there was a whole bunch
I'll tell
of
you why it
boxing.
would have been, because the other two, because they're two British guys, fairly local. Obviously, they're both from London as well, which means that their crowd would have come with tickets, and also it was for an English title.
Yeah.
That's what would. Oh, nah, do you know what? Fight fan, Laura Price. Yes, she was on before the main event, but she was more like a special attraction fight. It wasn't. I don't think we could call that the chief support. Not in a debut. I don't know, because remember, Campbell Hatton, the same thing was with him, and no one called him the chief support. It was like a special attraction. So, but if you want it, but technically you are right. She was on just before the main event, which to me was weird, because again, like, why do you put pressure on a debutee to have them fight like literally before the main event when it's their first time in the ring? It doesn't really that doesn't necessarily do them that well of a pool of good. Obviously she handled it well, she was excellent, and we can talk about that in a little while, but yeah, it doesn't make sense to have people just starting and having their debut and putting that much pressure on them. And that's what they done the same thing with Campbell. They're probably the reason he's as bad as he is at the moment. So I don't like that that move from them. It's not really, it doesn't really make sense to me. But
yeah, I mean, I wasn't obviously there. Danny was there. I mean, what was the crowd like, Danny, at the point when Lauren Price was boxing? Because my thought process and the guys that were around me was, oh, Lauren Price is having her debut for 6 rounds. Let's go have a beer. You know what I mean? I'm gonna take the chance and go have a walk, stretch my legs, and come back for the main event. So, Dan, if you could give us the intel on, if you're able to,
and
on
October as well, she was there. She would have been watching.
Yeah, so October.
I bet they was probably outside doing interviews at that point.
But I mean, the other side that I thought about was maybe Lauren has sold a bunch of tickets, and if she had a big support, then you maybe think, well, you take advantage of her high ticket sales and ensure that she gets higher up on the bill.
Maybe.
So the fight I did get a little bit of action from ringside, obviously copyright not in done, was this little knockout here on Vidal Ryan. That was a guy. We all kind of jumped out of our seat because he literally caught the man's jab, held the jab, and just swiveled him and came back with the right hook. It was like, whoa! It was impressive. So from what else did we see that night that was impressive? Yeah, so we saw Chris Congo with a performance against Formella. You know, that to me was, you know, a fight that you go, this is Chris's reintroduction back into the big time. If he wants to make anything, this is the fight he's got to impress him. And yeah, he did. He looked good. He won this one comfortably against a guy who's a seasoned vet. Did you see this fight?
I saw about 2 rounds of it in and out of sleep Sunday morning, so I can't really comment.
Okay. So yeah, let's see if there's any comments. So October said she was at the back of the arena at the time when Lauren was performing. Surprise, surprise. Yes, she's a woman and an Olympian, but yeah, it was her debut. Fight Fan Danny said some hardcores stayed, some casuals went for a beer after round 3. And yes, October was doing interviews at the time. Wow. Yeah, she says to that knockout, I'm guessing.
Oh, it's off the canvas of she now. Oh dear, Mohammed. That was all Tony. I had nothing to do with that. So when Monday Night Smoke comes next week, you know who to target.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, OTC. Hope you're well, buddy. So yeah, we saw Lauren Price, a fight easily forgotten. You know, she moves nice. You kind of expected her to dominate this fight, which she did. Then we had the Zach Chelly against Brown, which was a good fight. Two guys that had sparred together or came out of the same gym, same upbringing in the same gym. But this was a fight that I was hoping Brown was gonna be a lot more effective in, but he literally, to me, he never got into any decent gear where he could effectively catch Chelly with anything. And in the end, Chelly was just dancing his way to the win. It was a dominating performance from Chelly. You know, he fought. The difference for me with this one was footwork, because Chelly was able to move his feet in, get off his salvo of punches, and retreat. Zach Brown, everything he threw fell short. So he was trying to counter punch. He was failing miserably at that. When he tried to be first, he was falling short with literally everything. And again, I'm sitting there with my cousins and they're like, what's going on there? And I said, look at his footwork. He can't move his feet just before he makes the shot. And every time he does that, he's going to fall short. And he did consistently over and over again. So good performance from Chelly. What was your thoughts, Base?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the fight, I thought that Zach Chelly would win because every fight he's had, even the ones that he's lost, there was an argument that he probably could have and should have won those matches on the cards, and he was treated like the away fighter. But I just feel like there's a lot more upside in him, being the younger guy, obviously 4 years younger than Brown, with good movement, with a little bit of that sort of that dog and aggression in him, but also he doesn't stay in range to get hit like for very long. So once he kind of gets his stuff off, he's not there trying to get a neck shot off to then sort of maybe try and go for the kill. Like he backs out just after he's managed to sort of throw the, you know, like his big overhand right, or when he's popping that jab, he will back his way out. And if he can't kind of get his way out of that particular situation, then he'll sort of go fully on the inside, sort of hold, clinch, and at least that way, and they'll start trying to either rip the body or hit to the side of the head, or just stop the other guy from being able to land, like, you know, use his range and his length and land sort of heavy punches from a distance where there's a velocity that they can travel. So he's got quite a good he's got quite a good boxing brain. Obviously, he's nowhere near the finished article, but I definitely think that he can go up the levels from where he's at, and I could definitely see him getting towards that European sort of that European status type level. Whether he could win the belt or not, but he definitely could mix it with that caliber of opponent moving forward. 2-3 years from now, like I think he's just taken it on full time from the start of this year or the end of last year. Like I said, 24, so he's got plenty of years left to go. He's faced those losses, but as I said, those losses could have just as easily been wins if he had got the rubber the green or maybe had a bit of home field advantage instead of being the away guy. So there's a lot of upside in Zach Chelly. In terms of Jermaine Bryan, I don't really know where he goes from here, but there's still fun fights to him to have, but he's just got to go back to the drawing board, work on that footwork, work on making sure that his feet are in range before he starts throwing. And if that means that maybe you got to be a bit more of a pressure fighter and get the other person to back up ever so slightly so they don't have as far away to dodge and evade when your shots are coming in, if they got to stay towards the ropes a little bit more, then that's what he's got to try and work on, especially considering he doesn't have the necessary power to take people out in the center of the ring. That's how I kind of see it.
Okay. This is for you and the people in the chat. Who do you think he should go for next? Because we were having this conversation, and obviously the big name UK wise is Chris Eubank Jr.
Yeah, he's not at that level yet. I reckon, a good test for him would be Denzel Bentley or Linus Udofia. I think one of those would be a good fight for him. I would pick both of them to beat him, but it would definitely be a fight he could learn a lot from, and he's definitely got enough. He's got enough ability to keep it competitive and potentially even get a get a fluke, not a fluke win, but a win against the run of play. Bentley's probably got the bigger power punch of the two, so that one there might be a little bit that maybe you wouldn't want to go necessarily for that one, and that also means crossing over to another network. But Udofia, I mean, yeah, that one, I think his movement will just I think his actually no, wait, isn't he fighting at 168?
He's fighting at 168, yeah.
Oh, he's not 160. Okay. Right, hold on. I think who over here? See, the only person I can think of is Lerone Richards, and he'll get toyed with for 12 rounds against Lerone. John Ryder might be an interesting fight.
Oh no, he's not ready for John. He's not ready for John Ryder. And I think the Matchroom are lining John up for a crack at some kind of world title at the moment. I'm pretty certain of that.
Supposedly against David Morrell. But I don't know. I don't know enough of the 168 guys
Jack Callan, Mark Heffron.
Didn't he fight Cullen already? I'm sure that's one of the losses he had, isn't it? Little Lever's meat cleaver.
You might be right.
I mean, if that's the case, it might be a good one to run back. But yeah, I don't know enough of them. I'd have to go through the list. But yeah.
Cool. All right. So, what other fights from that Wembley card? Can you remember anything else that you wanted to talk about?
No, not me specifically.
I mean, there was some early doors action. Was Sandy Ryan on there?
No, Shannon Ryan was.
Shannon Ryan, sorry.
Yeah, her and Ebony Jones had a couple fights at the start of the. Yeah. I mean, there's not really much to say. Both of them were, both of them had very good performances. Ryan.
One of them was a 4-2s, and I was like, "What the hell are you doing 4-2s for? That's like amateur boxing."
Yeah, but that's how the women is, isn't it? 4, 6, 8, and 10. and it's 2-minute rounds.
I kind of look at 4-2s and just think, nah, that you need to stop the 4-2s for women. It's just, because if you're a top amateur boxer, you're fighting more as an amateur than you are at 4-2s.
True.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Why would you suddenly go up in standard in class, get paid, but be fighting less? That don't make no sense.
Well, I mean,
I
maybe
think
some
the women
people
should be
prefer that,
starting.
getting
You
paid
should
for
be
less
starting at
work.
6-2s. Because it's
No,
only 3 more minutes than you were boxing as an amateur.
Yeah, but maybe they're like, well, I'm getting paid and I'm doing less work than I was then. I mean, happy days.
Yeah.
But I get it. It makes sense. But yeah, no, there's not really much to talk about with those. Like I said, they both have pretty good performances, but there's still a lot to work on with both of them. Yeah, what else have we got?
So, I guess that concede that there was the was it a Queensbury show? The Leech,
which it preceded the Trevor Bryan and Daniel Dubois fight.
Yeah. So I unfortunately haven't seen any of that. You saw the main event. What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Davis came with an excellent game plan, kept it long, kept the range. And it's weird because whenever Leech went to orthodox, he had a lot more success than when he was fighting southpaw. And obviously, I think southpaw is his natural stance. And I'm clear it's probably orthodox was a bit foreign to him, but he was having a lot more success from that stance. But Davis, he was able to back away. He used his height and reach very well. He made sure that every time that Leech came into striking distance, he would either step back on him to make him fall short, or he would initiate a clinch between the two of them, so that Leech wasn't able to really get off a lot of work. I mean, he had some success, but it just wasn't enough throughout the fight. He started to kind of work Davis out in some of the middle rounds, but by the way the fight ended, it looked like Davis was literally trying to take those off to sort of get a second wind. But no, overall, it was a very sort of confident and competent performance by him. No complaints. It was quite impressive.
Yeah, good. Which concludes our action from the UK. So now we head across the water to the 3 sets of fights that were happening in the US. And I guess we start with Daniel Dubois. Let's see what I got for you here. Trevor Bryan versus Daniel Dubois. So again, we got just stills. So, dangerous Daniel Dubois. Dynamite Daniel Dubois. Put on a hell of a show, but we talked about this last week in that this fight was predicated on what shape Trevor Bryan came in. And it was difficult to tell. I mean, he didn't look in his worst shape at the weigh-in, but then he didn't look like he was in his best shape. So I was kind of sitting on the fence, not really sure what way this fight was going to go. I guess my loyalty was with the Brit, hoping that he would do the job. And lo and behold, there was not really much coming from Trevor Bryan in the early couple of rounds that made me think that this was going to be anything other than a early stoppage for Daniel Dubois. I mean, much like Richard Riakporhe, this is a guy with limited speed of feet, very mechanical in the way he goes about his business, but has huge power in his shots, and he was able to basically just detonate on Trevor Bryan as and when, because Bryan doesn't create an elusive target. He couldn't miss him, and it was just a matter of time. And eventually, round 4 came, and he put that fat piece of something on his ass. What was your take on the fight?
Well, I slightly disagree with the he couldn't miss him. He couldn't miss him with the jab, but he couldn't hit him with anything else apart from that left hook in the 4th round. There was one other shot, I believe, at the middle of the 3rd round that he caught him with, because obviously in the 1st round, very 1st round, Trevor Bryan did absolutely nothing. Like he didn't throw a punch. He was literally, I think he was just there trying to either understand what the power was like, or he was like, okay, he's way too sharp right now. If I try and do anything, it's gonna be it's not gonna be a good night for me. 2nd round is a bit more active. While obviously Daniel Dubois still did win the 2nd round, Trevor got off some decent work in terms of the jab. He snapped Dubois' head back quite a bit in the 2nd round, and on the inside, while he wasn't doing a huge amount of work, he was loading some little sneaky body hooks when he had sort of Dubois, like, you know, sort of in the clinch and up close. Then the 3rd round came, and he was actually, to me, he was actually winning that round up until I think he got caught on towards the top of the head with a high right. I don't know if it was overhand, but he caught him sort of towards the top of the head with a right hand, which kind of buckled him back a little bit, and then he ended up on the ropes. And then Daniel Dubois, he learned from the fight he had with Kevin Kingpin Johnson, where he was literally just he was throwing hands, doing nothing but trying to get him out of there. But this time he was trying to work out the angle, trying to find the right shot. He was actually trying to pick the shots on the ropes. Now, even though none of them landed, he didn't use up as much energy because he didn't throw as many, and he was trying to place them. So obviously Bryan got out of the 3rd round, and then in the 4th he came back out. He looked a little visibly not shaken, but he wasn't as steady as he had been sort of in the 1st and the 2nd. And he tried to trade with Daniel. He threw a couple right hands himself. One of them hit, and the rest of them kind of missed. He went with the jab a couple times. Then they ended up in that clinch on the inside, where Daniel basically held, and then he tried to throw the uppercut on him, but Trevor Bryan managed to evade the uppercut. And then lo and behold, he stepped back 1 step, and then as he came forward, he was coming forward to try and swing his own left hook. And as he launched back from the left hook and was coming towards, Daniel just came with the short left hook with no wind up on it, no nothing. Caught him square perfect on the chin, took his legs away, just turned off the lights. He face planted onto the floor. And even though, like, where the ref stopped it, it was a correct stoppage to a degree, but if he had have carried on counting, Bryan would have managed to get to his feet before the end of the 10 count. Then it just would have been whether or not the ref decided, is he still capable? Because at the time he got up and he was protesting, he still looked kind of clear-eyed that he probably could have carried on. But yeah, it was definitely, at that point, it was one-way traffic. It was only going to go one way. Now, in terms of the shape that he should have been in, realistically, he dropped about 9 pounds from his last fight, but he needed to drop about 29 pounds, because the last decent fight he had was the BJ Flores fight, when he was fighting about 236, sort of that. So that mid 230s, like to the really early 240s, is where he should have been. I mean, this is a guy that even competed at cruiserweight about 8 years ago. So having 60 pounds on a natural cruiserweight frame makes absolutely no sense to his to his mechanics and his boxing style. The only good thing about him is the fact that he is fluid and elusive and doesn't panic, which is a reason why he was able to sort of not get overwhelmed by a lot of those big shots that were coming from Daniel Dubois. But yeah, he didn't come in the right shape. He didn't use the game plan that he probably should have. He should have used his jab a lot more than he did. He should have probably forced Daniel to work more because he's used to fighting in those hot and humid conditions a lot more than Daniel is. If he had have got to sort of around 6, round 7, there's no telling if Daniel's gas tank would have been depleted or not at that point. But yeah, wrong tactics for him, right tactics for Daniel. But I don't even think Daniel's performance was that great. It's just a case that Bryan did virtually nothing. There was
Nothing.
still a couple times where he got hit and you could visibly see that he was panicked by the shots, and then he just started exchanging wildly for no reason. So that's something that is gonna get him hurt against those upper echelon people if he doesn't learn to just sort of calm it down, control it, and more importantly, get some fluidity in his upper body.
Yeah, so this is one where, he needs to go and do some ballet lessons and do a bit of yoga and start mixing up the workout so that he can get some more fluidity in his game. Because he's got physically, he's a beast. I mean, in that sort of set of stills that I put together, there's one shot where he's like literally celebrating his win, and you can just see all the sinews in his muscles just popping. It's like, rah! So he's a unit, and he could cause a lot of damage, but his boxing ability has to improve. He has to improve his jab. He's got a good jab, but it's a Bruno type jab, in that he doesn't get all of his shoulder into it. He's not leaning into the shot. It's a timing thing, which is good, that you have timing in your jab, because it's the most important punch to me. But, I just like to see him learn to get on his toes a bit, move around, snap the right to the body, just get a little bit more in his arsenal and get a little bit more movement before he starts talking about some of the names that he came out with. Quite a few people have mentioned about the production of this fight. I found this alarming, because when I was watching this, I thought to myself, what the hell am I watching? It did look like it was being shot in a church.
It was a leisure centre, I think.
It was awful. I mean, the picture was grainy. It looked like footage from a 1960s fight. And I was like, really?
Don King in his element, isn't it? That's
this
70s, 80s, early 90s.
And off the canvas says it looked like a school assembly from the Nativity. It was like, rah, this was some mad kind of production skills. But hey, it is what it is.
But you know what? For the production value and everything that was there, I mean, look, Daniel got $1.4 million out of it, and Trevor Bryan got about 2 million. So they both made off like bandits. I'd be in that casino or that leisure center or whatever it was for that kind of money. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. So, Hughie Fury versus Michael Hunter, winner next for Triple D. How do you guys see that going? I see Triple G knocking out both of them. I don't see either of those guys being able to beat Triple D. This is interesting that we're mentioning this, because yesterday on Monday Night Smoke, there was a lot of conversation about what levels different fighters are at. And, for me, level 1 is clearly Usyk and Fury. Level 2, AJ, Wilder. Level 3, you've got Joyce, White. Level 4, you got, some others. And way down at level 5 to me was Dynamite, Daniel Dubois. So it's like, fighters like Hughie Fury and Michael Hunter to me are level 6 fighters. I don't see them at that level. So I expect a level 5 fighter to beat a level 6 fighter. So that's how I see that one.
Yeah, I totally disagree on that. First things first, Daniel Dubois isn't knocking out Hughie Fury. I know that for a fact. Not only has Hughie got a chin, Huey's the longer guy, and he knows how to protect himself, and he knows how to smother and just make a fight boring and dull if he needs to stay safe. He's not. I don't think Dubois can detonate on him. He's not. He's not smart enough in terms of his ring craft
God,
to
who
do
has
that.
Huey Fury fought that has a punch anything like Daniel
Povetkin.
Dubois?
Yeah, you can't disagree with me on that one.
All right.
However, I've got Hugh. Yeah, so Huey Fury, I believe, would beat him. He'd outpoint him, just outwork him realistically. And I would give Michael Hunt. I mean, look, to be honest, Michael he ain't looked that hot since 2020 or no 2019 when he was in Saudi against Povetkin. But prior to that, I mean, taking out guys like Kuzman, Bakoli, the Povetkin fight was a good one. I think that Hunter would piece Dubois up because he's not fast enough for Hunter. Hunter's too elusive for him, and it's not like Hunter's he's got a punch on him as well. So yes, obviously he could possibly catch him with something, but in his stiff robotic motion that he's currently in, I just think Hunter is a stylistic nightmare for him. I don't see him winning that fight either. I think both of them beat him in different ways, if I'm totally honest with you.
Well, it looks like the people in the chat agree with you. Off the canvas, Fight Fan Danny, October Red, Uncle Jonas says Michael Hunter plays with Triple D. Danny says what level is Andy Ruiz? For me, he's a level 4. He's been to the mountaintop. He's won something, but we've seen nothing since really. He's like the forgotten guy. And based on recent performances, there's nothing that tells me he's getting back to the levels that he was when he won the title. Somewhat fortuitously, I would say. We need to see Joe Joyce back out, if I'm being honest, yeah. Deep Clan is saying I'm a Huey fan, so I can't say without bias.
I respect that.
Okay, and then off the canvas has put in all the names of some of the also rounds as well. Martin Bacoli, Kanaki, Robert Hellenius, Otto Wallin. Those guys are all around that sort of level 4, 5, 6 to me. You could swap and change them how you feel, but they're not in the top 3 levels for me. So that kind of falls back onto the conversation we were having yesterday night on Monday Night Smoke about, is Dillian Whyte a gatekeeper now based on his loss? For me, the fact that he's in level 3, he can't be a gatekeeper. He's still got, the beating of a lot of those other guys that we've just mentioned, in my opinion. What's your thoughts?
I mean, well, I didn't see the show, so but I mean, in that general statement, I would agree. I mean, there's not a huge amount of those guys that I would pick to beat him. But that being said, the clear vulnerability is there for all to see now. So it's anyone with a decent, a decent uppercut is a stylistic nightmare for Dillian Whyte at this time. I definitely do think if he was to ever have the rematch with Joseph Parker, that Parker will beat him in the rematch. Because we saw how the first fight kind of played out throughout the 12 rounds, with obviously Dillian being effective at the start and Parker being more effective towards the end. We don't know how the head clash and the headbutt affected things, for sort of the first half of the fight. So
let's not forget how Dillian performs in rematches, bro. 2 spark outs in his 2 rematches.
That's true, but that being said, in the rematch with Povetkin, he was fighting better in the first fight. In the rematch with Derek Chisora, he was fighting better in the first fight. So while he did have 2 spark out wins, he didn't fight as well in those rematches. And in the Povetkin one, let's be honest, like Povetkin was a shell of himself in that fight. So
Mm.
I can't really give him that one. The Chisora one, yeah, cool. But that being said, I mean, now we've seen what Joseph Parker does in rematches, and with Andy Lee. He's obviously been working on that punch power, and he doesn't have the super uppercut, but he's got that low level uppercut for guys that duck down, which Dillian does do at times.
Mm.
So I definitely think Parker would, even if he doesn't take him out, he wins that fight quite convincingly, in my opinion, and that's me being one of the biggest Dillian White fans here. So
Wow. Okay.
that's
So
without
Ash,
that's without
welcome to the
bias.
chat. Welcome to the chat, Ash. Comes in with a great question. Do either of you think Triple D beats Dillian White? I personally don't
No.
see it because, as I said, for me, Dillian White is still level 3 in the pecking order for heavyweights, whereas Triple D is down at level 5 at the best. Danny says, I got Parker beating White in the rematch, plus Parker's uppercuts in the Chisora rematch was wicked and would take White out. Interesting. I must still go with my boy White, but hey, I'm here for that smoke. James Burrows says, I'm with Tony, not writing Dillian off because he lost to Fury. Skyliner says Triple D beats White. Wow, interesting. Danny says White beats Triple D. Daniel's into green at the moment. At me, what level is a gatekeeper? So a gatekeeper is that fight before you get the world title shot. So bearing in mind that guys at level 3 have been either a world champion or been at that level to fight for the world championship. A gatekeeper to the world championship, probably level 4 or 5, like a the one that comes to mind with most people would be Derek Chisora. He's going to give you a tough night's work, and if you're capable of getting through that storm, then you probably could get in with someone at level 3 or level 2.
So you've got Derek Chisora at level 4.
After his last fight, no, I'd probably put him down a level down to 5.
I've got him at level 6, to be honest. If based on your criteria from earlier,
yeah, I could get that. I can get that. I mean, I'm not sure where Derek's performances are going to improve at all. He's slipping very fast, very very fast. But you know what? You only need to look back a couple of fights where he had a decent run out against Usyk, and there's people who would say Usyk is pound for pound, or certainly a legitimate challenge to Tyson Fury to be the heavyweight king right now.
Okay.
So, Derek on his good night could be level 3 on a good night, but on a bad night, he could be level 7. So, he to me is that, we don't know where he's going to be next. But let's move on, guys. So, I wanted to briefly talk about the WBA because a madness occurred this weekend. We saw 2 fights for WBA titles. We saw Kyoguchi versus Bermudez, which kind of unified 2 WBA belts, getting rid of a regular belt. But then we saw on the other hand the stupidity of Daniel Dubois fighting Trevor Bryan for that stupid Reggie belt that the WBA said they were getting rid of. And it just so happens that after this weekend's action, we are still left with 9 divisions in the boxing world where the WBA have 2 world titleists. And I know people will say, oh, but you can't call it a world title. Well, in the annals of history, as I always say to Fight Van Danny, them man there are going to go around and say, I was once a world champion, despite the fact that it wasn't the real championship belt, it was the WBA. Base, you got something to say on this? Let's hear what you got to say.
Right. So to clarify, the WBA didn't say they were getting rid of the regular titles. They said they were getting rid of all of the interims and the other belts, like the golds and all of that. So that's what they've been doing. Huh?
You went even worse. what you just said was even like,
No, I'm giving you I'm
yeah, no, I
telling you the
get it.
perspective. So
Yeah,
what
I get
basically
it.
what happened was they said that we've got all of these like the interims and stuff, and we got too many people holding these, and obviously we're now being they was at risk of losing certain financial incentives and sanctions within the US, and obviously that's where their biggest market is. So what they've done is they stripped anyone that had an interim title, but made it so that they would then fight for the regular belts, and anyone who was like a reigning or defending regular champion would get the opportunities to fight any of the super champions that didn't have any unifications or other fights, basically. So they was ordering a lot of the regulars to fight the supers, but it was mainly about getting all of the interim and all those other people out, and sort of getting rid of a lot of those straps. So that was what they were basically saying prior to that. Now with the regular title, because the WBA works a little differently, outside of their foolishness, their whole thing is the super champ doesn't have to satisfy mandatories unless the regular champ is unable to do so, in which case then the super champ has to satisfy the mandatories of the regular. If you've got a regular title and you defend it 3 times, then you automatically get the right to be able to challenge the super champ for a consolidation fight, which then clears the regular away. And then in this new current era, I believe it would be a case of once you get rid of that regular, the regular's gone totally. Whereas before, it was a case that you would get rid of the regular, or you would consolidate, and then it would just become vacant, and then someone could petition to fight for it afterwards. Now, I don't know how they've actually worked on that part, and whether they're going to keep those two consolidated or they're going to split them up again. But that's basically the difference between obviously the regular titles and like the interims and the golds and the interim to the interim and those kind of things. So that's the way to clear up what it was you, I guess, had the little bit of confusion on. Whether you agree with it or not is not the point. That's what
Yeah.
the deal is.
So yeah, I mean, guys, we ain't gonna spend a long time on this, but I mean, it just baffles the hell out of me that we are at 2022 and we've had all the talk. Where boxing is in a great place when we look at the unified champions, we look at the young undisputed champions. We look at some of the moves that are being made in the sport where we can see more undisputed, more unifications going on. We've seen some great matchups, people moving cross-platform, so they're not stuck in a stupid PBC contract for eons. But this WBA thing is just a killer. It's just an absolute killer, and it's the bane of our sport. So yeah, moving on. There's a super chat from Ash. Once again, Ash, thank you so much as always for your generosity. He says, "Bless up for the big show as per usual. I was late to the show, so apologies if this is a repeated question. Do either of you think Riakporhe beats Okolie?" So yes, we did address that, and my viewpoint was that Riakporhe is not ready for that challenge. Just like we've had the conversation about levels in the heavyweight division, there are levels to me also in the cruiserweight division, and Richard is at least a level or two possibly below Lawrence Okolie, in my opinion. And Base, you want to come in on your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, that one's literally power versus power. Who can kind of land first? But I feel that Lawrence is a bit more elusive and evasive, or safe than what Riakporhe is. Riakporhe's very much a bit more upright than Okolie, whereas Okolie is a bit more languid. So I think Okolie's definitely learned certain tricks that Riakporhe hasn't, because he hasn't had to learn them as of yet. So yeah, I do think that Okolie is the clear favorite in that one, but it is a puncher's chance, and all it takes is one slip up from either, and it's good night, because both of them have got dynamite in both hands.
Mm. So going back to our previous conversation about the sanctioning belts and the WBA, Bren comes in and says if the fighters refuse to fight for regular belt, the sanctioning fees that come with it, the problem would be solved. Never going to happen. Never, ever in a month or Sunday is going to happen. Because don't forget, we still got the IBO belt. Yeah? There's people boxing for that every week. We just don't see it because it doesn't have the visibility. But there's loads of great champions who have IBO belts. Klitschko's owned IBO belts. Lennox Lewis was an IBO champion. Floyd Mayweather had IBO belts. You know, those belts are still floating around. And so long as those belts are there, people will keep paying their money to have the opportunity to fight for those belts. So although we're in a 4-belt era, we're really in a 5-belt era or a 6-belt era if you count the WBA Reggie. But yeah, it's a slight on the sport, and you know, something I'd love to see cleaned up at some point.
Well, also, if you've got those regular belts or whatever, you can still command a higher purse than having no belt at all. So that's why they will, even if they do pay a bit of sanction, they normally will get double or triple that back in terms of their purse fee. So that's probably one of the reasons why that wouldn't happen also. With regards to October, I see the comment. I mean, yeah, if you want me to do that guide to the belts, I'm definitely happy to put in the legwork and just make sure I've got it all down pat and do a video on it. Thank you, Fight Fan, obviously saying that it was a great breakdown of the belts. There's obviously a lot more history within that WBA saga because there was a time when that regular title was actually a legit title of theirs. They changed it themselves and then caused the confusion and whatnot within the divisions and within all the other sanctioning bodies and whatnot. But so yeah, there are some people that were quote unquote regular champions back in the day, but they were legit world champions as opposed to what it is now. But yeah, that's a whole nother story. So yeah, I'm happy to kind of do that. I've got a video previous to that, so if I find it October, I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you on WhatsApp or something.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean the comments say enough. You know, your breakdown was fantastic. You know, it is something that, you know, confuses the whole, you know, even me, you know, someone who watches and tries to keep up with boxing as much as possible. But, you know, as I always say to Danny, in the annals of history, people will still say those Reggie Belt champions are gonna call themselves champions for indefinitely, which is why even those spurious titles that the WBC had, that Tank has picked up, he's still going to call himself a freeweight world champion. You know, I saw a video of him talking with Errol Spence the other day, and Errol was like, "Yeah, look at my guy Tank. He's a freeweight world champion." And it's like, sorry, but there's the proof. Everyone's going to say Tank is a freeweight world champion. You and I might not want to classify him as such, but unfortunately, with the proliferation of the belts the way they have been, it's unfortunate that we have to live with that, I think, as a, you know, a thing that we'll never be able to get rid of.
Yeah, I hear that. Listen, we gotta get through the next two because I've not got a huge amount of battery left, and I don't want to
No
end the
problem.
show.
Okay, so let's get on to the last two fights in the group. We're getting to yours, Danny. Don't worry. We haven't gone past the Berlanga fight, but the next one I want to talk about is Jaime Munguia against a Brit. I don't even know his first name.
Jimmy Kelly.
Jimmy Kelly. There we go. Let's see. Let's have a little look at the action. So, Jaime Munguia, he defies he defies the fight public. He's like Mama. You either love him or you hate him. I mean, for a guy, let me just start with the crowd in that event were phenomenal. I mean, it was raucous in that arena. I mean, Mexico, Mexico, Mexico. He's fighting in America. He's fighting in Anaheim, California. But the sound coming out of the arena is phenomenal. He's clearly got a lot of A-side about him. You know, he brings a crowd. He's got a nation behind him. You know, he's got this fantastic record. But let's be honest, 39-0. You know, we know about the issues that he's had with the drugs in the past, but let's knock all that out. But the guy's exciting. I enjoy watching his fights, but he has to step up now, you know, and he's never like one of these guys like Tank where you go, I enjoy watching your fights, but you ain't got no title worth talking about. And he dealt with Jimmy Chelly excellently. You know, look at the hand speed. It's beautiful. The shots, you know, he's delivering he's got everything in his arsenal. You know, the body shots, the head movement, this guy is to me maximum violence, wonderful entertainment.
Wait, did you just say that Munguia's got head movement?
I actually think he does. I
No,
think he's
he
worked
doesn't.
on it. Okay, watch this fight, bro. Because I'm telling
I
you,
watched the fight.
Before he had terrible. And let's be honest, I'm not saying he's super elusive. He ain't Canelo Alvarez, yeah? But what he has developed of late is he is moving his head. And he's throwing shots with his head in different positions, yeah? I'm telling you now, I know a lot of people will say he don't move his head, but look at his fight, look at this fight, and you'll see a lot of head movement. Yeah, he slips a lot of jabs, just like Canelo. He just moves the head, a little slip to the side of the jab, yeah, and he counters. He's gone, he's pounced. Yeah, this guy has developed head movement a lot better than a lot of people give him credit for.
Okay, I'll rewatch the fight just because of your comments there. But what I saw was him getting outboxed, outlanded, and basically just outfoxed and outfought for 4 rounds before he managed to obviously connect with a peach of an uppercut in the fifth round, which took Jimmy Kelly's legs away. But realistically, as you just said, I mean, as good as Jimmy Kelly performed in those first 4 rounds, absolutely no one gave him a chance of making it to the end of this fight. If anything, I think people were surprised he made it to the fifth round. And that to me is a bit of an indictment on the lack of abilities of Munguia. There's only so much that you can dine out on being a hard nut and being able to take a punch and come forward and obviously use your power to get out of trouble, because ultimately he's kind of like a pressure fighter who, against someone like Kelly, who's normally supposed to be a pure boxer, all right, that works. But then when you've got like someone that's a boxer puncher, especially with comparable power to yourself, someone more of the akin of a Golovkin, for instance, like Munguia doesn't see 12 rounds because he's there to be hit. His defense is very, very leaky. And he's, again, it's almost like he's trading on the fact that I'm just going to be tougher than you. Whereas the skills that are required for him to not be taking the kind of punishment he has to be taking is just, they're not on show right now. And maybe Jimmy Kelly just didn't hit him hard enough for him to respect him enough to say, okay, I need to, shell up and whatnot. But to me, like, that performance was awful. I don't rate it at all. And the fact that he won doesn't mask the fact that it was a terrible performance. And maybe Jimmy Kelly also overperformed. It might have been a bit of both. The one good thing I will say about Munguia in this is that at least on the scales, he looked the best that he's probably looked in the last 2 to 3 years.
Agreed.
Possibly a bit more. Like, he actually looked healthy on the scales. He didn't look like he was desperate for water, fainting in the back before fights and whatnot. Like, that was maybe one of the reasons he took some of the shots as good as he did, because him at the fight before this, like the last fight, I reckon Chelly might have even put him on his back pocket with some of those shots that he caught him with.
So we'll agree to differ on that one. I like the kid.
I didn't say I don't like him. He just wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't a good performance at all.
I thought it
A
was.
salute to Maestro and Karma. I see you, my two favorite Americans. Even though obviously Maestro, I know you Caribbean, so yeah, give you that one. But
so yeah, good performance for me. Not many people chiming in. Here we go. James Burrell says, "Is Munguia one of those guys that didn't have a real amateur career?"
no, he didn't have a huge, extensive one, but most Mexicans don't. That's why they end up with 30, 40, 50 fights, because they learn their craft in the pro game from early, and they have all of those early fights. That's why he's on 40 fights at the age of 25.
Yeah, that's the truth. They learn it in the sparring. So yeah, that's that one. Where does he go next? Is I guess the question, because again, it's a packed division, loads of fights there in that 168 division. Who would you like to see him in with, Base?
Well, he said that he's potentially going back down to 160, so maybe he might have found a way to actually be making the weight properly from now. But supposedly, if he stays at 168, he's gonna be in a bit of problems just in terms of who he can fight, unless they do cross the zone promotions with like the Matchroom side, because realistically, all the other big 168 pounders are with PBC, and we all know how that's gonna go. I don't know how many Top Rank have got, and I don't know if he's gonna cross the street to fight anyone worthy in that sense. So
it's funny you mentioned John Ryder a bit earlier.
Well, I mean, Ryder would make sense to me. If Demetrius Andrade is up at 168 properly now, that would also be a good fight for him. But again, I don't know if he's gonna make that. And now that Andrade's not actually with the zone signed anymore, they might not even. There's definitely no leverage for him to be able to get that fight if they don't want to take it. Because Oscar has already said in previous interviews he's all about the style matchups, and obviously he's talking about matching his people against styles that give them the best chance of winning. And I don't know if that's Andrade. So I really don't know who we could fight next. He needs to be challenging for titles. If he can go back down to 160, I say you take on Yanibek. That would be a fight for me. That's what I want to see him fight. I want to see him fight Yanibek Alim Kanuli.
Okay, Uncle Jonas says feed him to Berlanga. Well, look like Berlanga would want to eat him.
No, he might want to feed, but Munguia will beat the shit out of Berlanga. Like,
I
facts.
believe that. I'm trying to make a joke because we're about.
I know. But I just wait. I need the people to understand that Munguia will devastate him. 160, 168 doesn't matter. Berlanga's not ready for that kind of opponent.
Yeah. So yeah, the last fight we're gonna talk about is Edgar Berlanga and
Roma Alexis Angulo.
I mean, to be honest, this was not as entertaining a fight to me. Berlanga went through the motions. It just, he won this. This was a 10-rounder. The judges.
No, it was 12 rounds.
Was it 12?
Oh wait, no, you're right.
It was 10, yeah, because I remember the judges' scorecards had it 92, 90,
98, 92, 99, 91, and I think there was a 98. No, it's two 98, 92s and one 99,
91s.
No, it was the other way. It was two 98, 92s and one 98, 199, 91.
Yeah.
Which was horrendous scoring, because I could make an argument that Angulo actually won the fight. I could quite easily make the argument. I'm not going to do that. If you watch that fight again, he was the busier guy. He was back in Berlanga around the ring. He was landing the more telling shots. You look at the two faces of the guys at the end of it. the one person was showing better ring generalship throughout the entire fight. One person was visibly hurting the other more throughout the fight in each individual round as well, and was just being busier. So I'm not saying that it's a robbery or anything. Like, I knew that Berlanga would get it because he did enough to get those rounds being the home fighter. But like I said, I could make a case that Angulo won that fight, and there's not many people that would say it was a mad one. But yeah, it was another like horrible performance. Another person just showing that when you take them away from the literal journeyman and the beam poles that are just going to stand in front of you and not move, he's got no answers to any of that. And the thing is, he's learning in fights whereby these are the kind of fights he should have been having 10 fights ago, 15 fights ago, rather than the fights that he was having. So his development's been stunted by, sort of by a good 3 years, just because they wanted all of those highlight real knockouts or whatever. And now he's paying the price. And I don't think he's going to get much better than the level he's at now, if I'm really honest.
I mean, is kind of spurious win over Steve Rolls. You look at his record, and it's just, I just see him as a middle of the road fighter. A level 4, level 5 type fighter in the division. You've named already a load of guys that are way above him: Morel, Benavidez, Riders. There's just so many guys.
Even Andre and Anthony Durrell, they beat him as well.
Yeah. So yeah, not much to say about that fight other than this.
How did the ref not even hold the action and warn? That's how you know there was literal like bias and hometown cooking in that entire fight. Because how do you think that even on the blind side of the ref, if Angulo did that to him, he wouldn't have got disqualified or a point taken off at minimum? There's no justification to how he did that, and then made a joke about it at the end of the fight. Mad. Like it's
I mean, the fact that he actually came out and said he tried to do a Mike Tyson because he felt he was being held. When in all honesty, he was the one doing the holding. You look at the incident and he's actually holding Angulo. Yeah. So yeah, I think there needs to be some kind of after event punishment where they look at this and say, hang on, what happened here needs to be, something needs to happen. Because quite simply, it's just not boxing. I had one of my greatest nights ever spoiled by that notorious bite, because I was ringside for Tyson Holyfield 2. And to me, that was going to be a great rematch, great fight. I was looking forward to it, but then the bite ruined the night for me. It's one of them sad nights in boxing as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, that kind of brings us to the end of the weekend action. We've obviously overrun a lot. We've still got a fight to cover for this upcoming weekend. But yeah, there was a hell of a lot of boxing to get through. Any last points before we move on to Smith versus Beterbiev?
No, let's get to
it. Let's do that. Okay, so after all of that, we come to the final talking point of the night, which is the Common Man versus King Arthur. I've actually been watching the pre-fight, the sort of like 24/7
Blood, Sweat and Tears.
Yeah, I quite like it because getting into Joe Smith has been quite new for me because I really didn't know much about the guy, and to see how he's lived his life, on the farm and in a little rural village, and to see that he's living at his farm now, very interesting. And obviously, you know, after Beterbiev, the naturalization to Canada, you know, that's been an interesting storyline as well. But this is actually an interesting fight. I think most people consider Beterbiev to be the better fighter, the stronger fighter. He is a beast, and it was interesting watching him recover from that cut forehead injury that he had in his last fight, where his corner said, look, you got 1 round to finish this fight, and literally he just finished this guy off. I still think this is an interesting fight, though, because I ain't so sure it's quite a procession in terms of Beterbiev winning it. I think Joe Smith is one of them blood and guts fighters who causes anyone and everyone a problem. Yeah. Yes, he's been beaten in the past. He's got flaws in his game, but he's just a problem child, I think. And I think he's gonna be all over Arthur Beterbiev in this fight coming up. Ask people for my decision. I could see upset. I don't know. I just got a feeling there's a potential upset. I've spoken enough. Go on, Base. Tell us what you think.
I mean, I feel like this fight, it's a lot more competitive than a lot of people are giving it. Yes, like Joe Smith Jr. isn't on the level of Beterbiev in terms of technical ability and, you know, sort of ring savvy and, you know, like, you know, in-ring IQ. But this fight to me is won and lost on if Beterbiev has still got enough foot speed and enough maneuverability to stay on the inside of Joe Smith Jr.'s range, because Joe Smith is much more of a mid-range type guy, to I would say more kind of on the outside than like an inside fighter, whereas Beterbiev is more mid-range to inside, working behind sort of the high guards, pressuring his opponents and making them throw. Joe Smith Jr. doesn't have a poor gas tank, so if Beterbiev's idea is to pressure him to make him work more than he wants to work, and then, like, you know, sort of pick him off a little bit down the line, that's a dangerous tactic, because from all intents and purposes, I've never seen Joe Smith Jr. be gassing in a fight, and his power kind of remains with him throughout the entirety. So, but that being said, if Beterbiev can stay towards the inside of him, then I definitely can see him stopping Joe Smith Jr. like towards rounds 9 or 10, 9, 10, and 11, sort of somewhere around there. But if he can't get on the inside consistently, Joe Smith Jr. has definitely got the power to take him out. Especially as we know that Beterbiev has been down like 3 times in his pro career. I can't remember all 3 of the names. The only one I can remember off the top of my head is Callum Johnson, but I know there's 2 others. That being said, while I want to see how they both look on the scales before giving any necessary opinion, but on this one, I'm gonna be going with the safe bet, because I just think that Beterbiev has got enough nous to be able to stay on the inside. So I'm gonna pick. I'm gonna tentatively pick for the time being Beterbiev, but that's all subject to change by the time Basis Picks comes around on Friday.
Nice segue. So, guys, I'm gonna put in the ticker where you can find Base for his Basis Picks show. Base has had a lot of content recently, so go have a look at some of the good stuff. The Weekend Wrap was a good one. The Femme Files, as he's mentioned before, always great content in there for those of you that need to get a bit of a heads up of what's going on in the female game. But yeah, look out for his picks this weekend. All the content is tickering down at the bottom, so jump on those.
Appreciate it.
You can jump onto me again, all down the bottom. Once again, look out for the Undefeated pod on Thursday, Monday Night Smoke on Monday, of course. We haven't seen October Red's Red News recently, so October, if you're still there, tell the people them. But yeah, October's platform, to be honest, I know she's mad busy with her own platform. So go check her workout on the fifth member of the Undefeated team. She's doing great stuff with her content of late as well.
Not just the fifth member, she's the MVP of the team. We can't downplay the levels.
Ooh, the MVP.
She is the MVP.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking Michael Venom Page either. Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, thanks a lot, guys, for joining us this evening. We have had a lot of content to talk about, and there's still a load of stuff that I was thinking about talking about, but we'll hold that back for other weeks. Enjoy your boxing this weekend. As I said, I think this Beterbiev against Smith fight's going to be a barnstormer. I'm looking forward to it. Is there any UK action that you know of?
Yeah, Channel 5. Josh Kelly's return on Friday, and Nathan Gorman as well.
Okay, so look out for that. We'll probably get a little look at that somewhere along the line. But guys, thank you very much for joining us. Have a great week. See you all next week. Base.
Yeah, same as Tony said, man. That's the best way to end it. So appreciate everyone who's watching, who continues to watch and continues to support. Like I said, Mulla, like Ash, Karma, Maestro, October, Gonguru, and everyone else in between. Anyone I've forgotten. White Tony, I saw you in it earlier. If you're still here, big up.
Bren.
OTC, North Bank Bren, MC Tasty and Chips, Uncle Jonah, like. We appreciate all of you, so please keep supporting. We're going to keep trying to raise the levels, and yeah, that's it. We're out. Respect.
Take care, guys.